Good morning, class 12. Today I am going to start with the new topic of the chapter surface chemistry, that is catalysis. And I hope that you people have understood the factors affecting the rate of adsorption, and especially the Freundlich adsorption isotherm and the Langmuir isotherm is clear to you, as I told you that these are very important for your exams also. So children, if you have any doubt in those topics, please feel free to discuss your doubt with me. And now pay attention to this topic, as this is a very simple topic and you will understand in just one go. Just pay attention, listen to what I'm telling you. Children, catalysis, this term is coming from catalyst, and I hope you people have heard about catalyst and you are also aware of what a catalyst is. So can you define it on your own? So most of you, I hope, knows the definition of catalyst. The only mistake that you do is this: most of you define it as the chemical substance which speeds up the rate of a reaction. So this is wrong, children. If you say speeds up, then it is wrong. You have to say that it is a chemical substance which alters the rate of reaction, because a catalyst can be positive and a catalyst can be negative. That means it can increase the rate of reaction by reducing the activation energy. At the same time, there are various other catalysts which can decrease the rate of reaction by increasing the activation energy. If you remember, I told you in chapter chemical kinetics that the functioning of a catalyst is based on providing an alternate pathway to the reactants to get converted into product, and that alternate pathway requires less energy. Then we are talking about positive catalyst. But in case if it is increasing, that alternate pathway is requiring more amount of energy to get converted into the product, then it is known as negative catalyst. Okay, for example, positive catalyst used in Haber's process is finely divided iron. If you remember this reaction, N2 plus 3H2 getting converted into 2NH3. Haber's process is very common and very simple example, as this is actually a universal example because this fits in all the categories. It is reversible, it is homogeneous, and then it involves catalyst, promoter, everything. Then coming to negative catalyst, you can see here an example is mentioned: acetanilide used to inhibit the decomposition of H2O2. If you remember from class 11, children, H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. It is one of the compound of hydrogen that we discussed in class 11. It is kept in dark colored bottles, and the bottles are filled up to the brim because it has a tendency to undergo decomposition the moment it gets light. So this is actually a non-favorable decomposition, so obviously we need to inhibit it, and to inhibit it we use a inhibitor or a negative catalyst, which is acetanilide. And this acetanilide acts as a depressant, that is, it actually inhibits or slows down the rate of decomposition of H2O2 into H2O and O2. So this is how the negative catalyst functions. Now coming to another term related to the topic, promoters. What are promoters? Promoters are the chemical substances which increases the efficiency of a catalyst. That is, they make the catalyst more efficient. For example, molybdenum for finely divided iron, again in Haber's process. Okay, molybdenum acts as a promoter. It increases the efficiency of catalyst. Then another promoters are also known as accelerators. If you want, you can mention in your notes, they are also known as accelerators. Now coming to poison. Poison, as the name suggests, as you can find out from the name itself, it is poisoning the catalyst. they are also known as inhibitors. The negative catalyst you'll find in some book are also referred to as inhibitors, whereas poison are also referred to as inhibitors. They decreases the efficiency of the catalyst. One of the example is during the hydrogenation reaction. Hydrogenation means addition of hydrogen to unsaturated hydrocarbon in the presence of nickel, palladium, platinum as catalyst. So poison is being used in the hydrogenation reaction of alkyne to alkene. Okay, now what is the poison that we are using here? The catalyst used is palladium and it is poisoned with barium sulfate in quinoline. It is also known as Lindlar's catalyst. It is also known as Lindlar's catalyst. You will be studying it in organic chemistry. So what happens? This barium sulfate in quinoline inhibits or poisons the catalyst palladium. Why do we need to do this? Why are we doing this? We are doing this in order to stop the conversion or the hydrogenation of alkyne to alkene. We do not want alkene to get converted into alkane. If you remember, children, alkyne is CH triple bond CH. If you add 2 hydrogen to it, that is hydrogenation of this, if carried out, it will get converted into CH2 double bond CH2, and if one step ahead you will hydrogenate it, you will get CH3 single bond CH3. Now we don't want this step. In order to skip this step, we poison the catalyst so that the rate of the reaction or the efficiency of the catalyst decreases, because we want to stop here. We want that the hydrogenation should occur only up to this step. Okay, so poisons are also helpful in some of the reactions. We have to use poison because some reactions are non-favorable. In that case, we need to stop certain reactions in between. We need to inhibit the rate of reactions. So in such cases, the negative catalyst or poisons are used. Now coming to another category, that is homogeneous and heterogeneous catalysis. What is the difference between the two? Homogeneous catalysis means a catalyst which exists in the same phase as the reactants. That is, if the reactant and the catalyst are in the same phase, both are in gaseous, both are in solid, or whatever the phase is, but the phase is same. And heterogeneous means if the phase is different. For example, if we talk about the hydrolysis of ester, in that case we use aqueous solution of an acid. H plus indicates acid is used as a catalyst here, and the phase of the two is same. So it is homogeneous catalyst. And a simple example, SO2 getting converted into SO3. You can see here the reactants are gaseous, and also the catalyst NO or NO2 can also be used. Both are gaseous in state. So we get SO3 as the product. So all the reactant, product and catalyst are in the same phase. And again, here coming the example of Haber's process, N2 plus 3H2 getting converted into ammonia, where we use solid iron, finely divided iron, which is heterogeneous. Okay, and this is also an example. If you are converting SO2 into SO3 in the presence of vanadium pentoxide, then it is again a solid catalyst. So this will fall under heterogeneous catalysis. I hope it is clear, children. Now there are some more examples or some more differences between homogeneous and heterogeneous catalysis. Homogeneous catalysis is, in this, the rate of reaction does not depend upon the surface area of the catalyst, because in most of the cases you'll observe that homogeneous catalysis occurs in aqueous solution or in gaseous state. Obviously surface area cannot be important criteria for gaseous or the aqueous state. And heterogeneous means it depends upon the surface area of the catalyst, obviously, because in this case most of the times the catalyst will be in solid state. Catalyst cannot be easily separated from the products of the reaction because all are in the same phase. Separating a gas from gas, separating a aqueous solution from an aqueous solution is a difficult task, whereas in this case you can easily separate out a solid component or solid catalyst from the other phases, from the gaseous or the liquid phases. So I hope it is clear. Again, repeating the definition of catalyst, it is a substance which alters the rate of reaction without participating in the reaction. That is, it is only helping in altering the rate of reaction, but it does not participate, it does not become a part of the reactant or the product. Now let us discuss the mechanism of heterogeneous catalysis. Mechanism is very simple. I am discussing here the hydrogenation reaction only, where I have taken nickel as the catalyst. Children, what is the function of this catalyst surface? It adsorbs the two gases. See, if you are carrying out the reaction without the catalyst, what happens? Hydrogen molecules will be dispersed. These molecules will be dispersed. Now the possibility of the two coming together is very low. But if you have a binding surface here, this catalyst is acting as a binding surface here. It is attracting hydrogen molecules and also the molecule of this ethylene gas, ethene gas or ethylene gas. So in this way, what it is doing, it is bringing the two gases in close contact so as to react at a faster rate. So this is the first step, that the gas is getting adsorbed to the surface of the catalyst. The adsorption is occurring here. In the second step, what happens? The bonds start getting weakened. You can see here that hydrogen has this, whenever a new bond is formed, children, the previous bond breaks. So hydrogen is forming a new bond with nickel, a temporary bond with nickel. In this case also a temporary bond is formed with nickel. So obviously the bonding between these two atoms will weaken. So now the two atoms of hydrogen molecule will be free, as you can see. Similarly, here also new bonds are being formed. So this one of the two bonds present here will be weakened like this. So these two will start reacting with each other. Now hydrogen atom will start bonding itself, because in atomic state hydrogen is unstable. It start bonding itself with CH2, because this is also now free, this is also now free. It will react with each other. So this previous bond of CH2 with nickel will start getting weakened. Now this bond will start getting breaking. Now as a result, what will happen finally? You will get CH3, which is the required product, and nickel surface will be free. So basically you can see here the function of the catalyst is only the adsorption of the gaseous reactants. We are talking about heterogeneous catalysis. Only you have to do this for heterogeneous catalysis, though this has never been asked in your board exams, but it is a part of your syllabus, so you must know it, because you will be appearing for competitions also. You should know how is a catalyst functioning. Now if I talk about a promoter, then promoter molecules, what does it do? It adjusts itself between these catalyst atoms. It adjusts itself like this. So obviously it will separate the two nickel atoms to a farther apart distance. So breaking of bond between the hydrogen molecule will be facilitated, will become more easy. Similarly, the breaking of bond between CH2 will become more easy, because now nickel atoms will be far apart from each other because of the incorporation of the promoters in between the nickel atoms. This is how the promoter functions. And how does a poison function? Poison, what happens? The affinity of poison is more for catalyst in comparison to the reactants. So if suppose in this case, if I take CO, then instead of binding nickel, instead of binding with hydrogen and CH2, will start binding to the CO, carbon monoxide. This is just an example. So now the surface availability of the catalyst will decrease in comparison to the surface availability in the absence of poison. So if I take a poison here, it will try to adsorb itself to the catalyst surface such that the surface availability goes down. As you can consider a very simple example of carbon monoxide poisoning in blood. If suppose carbon monoxide is inhaled, then what happens? Hemoglobin, instead of binding to oxygen, starts binding with CO, because the affinity of hemoglobin for CO is more in comparison to its affinity for oxygen. So obviously the availability of hemoglobin is very less for oxygen. So in that case, CO is acting as a poison. This is how a poison functions. That is why it is known as carbon monoxide poisoning. So I hope it is clear, children. Now coming to general characteristics of catalyst. A catalyst does not participate in a reaction. I hope you know it. In equilibrium reaction, catalyst only helps in attaining the equilibrium at a faster rate. This point I discussed n number of times in class 11 chapter equilibrium. Like this catalyst only helps if you are if you are using catalyst in a reversible reaction, which is in equilibrium. A catalyst cannot increase or decrease the rate of reaction. It can only help in attaining the equilibrium at a faster position. What happens? It cannot change the position of the equilibrium. But obviously the equilibrium will be attained at a faster rate, because if a catalyst will function, it will function equally on both forward reaction and backward reaction. An extremely small amount of catalyst causes considerable increase in rate of reaction. That means a catalyst is needed only in small quantity. It provides an alternate pathway by lowering the activation energy, already discussed point, does not affect the energies of the reactant and the product. As you saw in the graph that I discussed in chemical kinetics chapter. If you have not seen those videos, children, please go and watch those videos, because I explained the functioning of catalyst in detail in those videos. So it does not affect the energy of the reactant or product. It only provides an alternate pathway so as to get converted into alternate pathway to the reactant to get converted into product. Catalyst does not initiate a reaction. It only helps in altering the rate of reaction. It does not initiate a reaction, but there is an exception to it, where in case of reaction of H2 and O2, if hydrogen is reacting with O2, the product will be water obviously. If the reaction is carried out at 25 degrees Celsius at room temperature, the reaction will not initiate itself on its own. But the moment you introduce platinum into this container, what will happen? Hydrogen and oxygen will start reacting immediately. So it will start reacting immediately. That means platinum in that case is acting as an initiator. That is an exceptional case. So catalyst does not initiate a reaction. Exception is reaction of H2O2 is initiated in the presence of platinum. Right, platinum here. The presence of, I should have written it here, in the presence of platinum as catalyst, and the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. So in the absence of this platinum, the reaction does not proceed. It initiates only when this platinum is introduced to the reaction mixture. Now moving on to enzymes, which are biocatalyst or biological catalyst. Children, they are also catalyst, but since they alter the rate of the biological reactions, the reactions which are occurring in animal and plant bodies, therefore it is known as biocatalyst. They are actually protein molecules. They are protein in nature, of high molecular mass, and form colloidal solution. I'll be discussing about colloids later on in this chapter. In fact, the next topic is colloids only. They are very effective catalysts. They are very effective. That means they are more effective than chemical catalyst and catalyze numerous reactions, especially those connected with natural process. That is the reactions occurring in our body. For example, cane sugar gets converted into glucose and fructose in the presence of enzyme invertase. Glucose gets converted into ethyl alcohol and CO2 in the presence of the enzyme zymase. Urea gets converted into ammonia and CO2 in the presence of urease. So these are the enzymes, and you must have studied about various digestive enzymes in the chapter digestive system in biology. You can take up the examples from there also. Then another characteristics, they are highly efficient. They are very efficient, that is increases the rate by 10 raised to the power 8 to 10 raised to the 20 times, which is very, very high. Enzymes are highly specific, that is each enzyme is specific for a particular reactant or a particular substrate. It's not like enzyme can react with any reactant. They are highly specific in nature. Enzyme catalyzes only one chemical reaction. They are needed in small quantity because they are highly effective. Small quantity is just enough. They work at optimum conditions like temperature at 37 degrees Celsius, which is optimum temperature, and pH of 7.4. So obviously, when you have fever, when your body temperature rises, the enzyme activities uh, get disturbed. That is why it is advised that whenever you have high fever, the first thing advised is to lower down the body temperature so that other biological reactions does not get hampered because of the high temperature of the body. And you all are aware of this fact that rise in body temperature, the raise in body temperature is the first symptom of each and every disease. So it is advised that body temperature should be maintained to the optimum range. Now, how does an enzyme function? Mechanism of enzyme catalysis. It follows the lock and key hypothesis. Now, what does it mean? In case of enzyme reaction, what happens? If suppose this is an enzyme and it is a substrate, that is the reactant. As you can see, the shapes are complementary. What happens? This substrate gets fitted into it. So, like in this case, we get enzyme substrate complex, which means if you try to draw it in the structural form, it will be like this. This is the enzyme, and in between the enzyme, what will you find? In between the enzyme, the substrate get fitted like this. So you can see it follows lock and key hypothesis. If the shapes are complementary, then only the enzyme and substrate will react. And then on final decomposition, you'll get enzyme and the product. This is called lock and key hypothesis. The shapes should be complementary. So I have mentioned here there are active centers. These are called active centers on the surface of the enzymes. These cavities are of characteristic shape and possess active groups such as amine, acid, thiol, alcohol, etc. The molecules of the substrate having complementary shape fits into the enzyme like key into a lock, and then on further reaction the enzyme is separated from the product. Because it is also a catalyst, it will just help in carrying out the reaction, but it will not participate in the reaction. So I hope this topic is clear to you, children. Now this finishes your catalysis topic. Now I'll be beginning with the topic colloids in the next session. Children, keep on updating your notes. It is very important for this chapter because it is totally theoretical. If you are preparing your notes well, children, it will become easy for you to study at the last moment. Okay, because at the last moment when you are preparing for your boards, if you have notes of your own, if you have your handwritten notes, it become easy for you to understand the concepts. So this is all for today. Revise it, and in case of any doubt, children, please ask your doubts. Thank you. Have a nice day.